Welcome everyone, Questine here with a discussion about Gorduz Backstabber, the legendary hero of the Chaos Dwarves, and how useful he can be in a campaign, how to unlock him, how to use him, how to level him up, and how good he is. For the record, I don't think he's overpowered, but he certainly does add quite a bit of value to your campaign. So in order to gain Gorduz, here's what you need to do in your campaign. You need to build the Hobgoblin mustering camp. If you have enough labor on turn 1, you can instantly construct it. And once you instantly construct it with 100 labor, which you will have on turn 1, you can then start recruiting Hobgoblin units, and this will give you the quest to unlock Gorduz. Now this is something you can do within 2 turns even, or in your campaign if you're doing it very, very quickly, especially as Zaytan the Black, but with any legendary lord of the Chaos Dwarves if you're willing to jump into global recruitment. Though that's obviously not recommended as an idea. But if you can recruit hobgoblins from the very start of your campaign, or as Zaytan you start with 2 units of hobgoblins, it is pretty easy, pretty quick to be able to get access to Gorduz. So once you reach turn 3, you should be able to have recruited Gorduz Backstabber. This will also give you 500 labor, which is a fairly substantial benefit in terms of your instant construction or money or control in your province. I prefer to use it for the sake of Conclave Influence, just being able to get that Conclave Influence very quickly. Now Gorduz does have replenishment by default, and he can also spread control in your province, but his hero actions are not what you're really interested with Gorduz. Though having replenishment, that additional replenishment that he does provide you in your army, by default you're gonna get 8%. You can increase this to 17%, and as Zaytan the Black you can get 25% replenishment with Zaytan himself. Yeah, Zaytan really benefits from him in his campaign. His replenishment can actually be so absolutely ridiculous. But let's look at Gorduz's situation as a hero. He starts with 2 items. He will get the Dagger of Malice, which will do a lot of damage and poison an enemy if you're using it, plus 15% weapon strength. And he also gets an additional 10% casualty replenishment for Hobgoblin units through the Banner of Slavery, 10% physical resistance for Hobgoblin units, and immune to psychology for Hobgoblin and Hobgoblin Wolf Raider units. So he makes them substantially stronger with these 2 items. Though bear in mind, these items, can only be used on Gorduz himself. You can't just put them on another hero. You can take them out, Gorduz, if you want to replace them with something else, if you so desire, like give him an Armor of Destiny, a Talisman of Preservation, for instance, if you want to make him a much stronger hero in a fight. He also gets the Distrustful Disposition, which reduces the global recruitment duration of Hobgoblin units, as well as giving you in the army that you attach them to +6 leadership for Hobgoblin units, which makes them far more useful in a fight. While early on in your campaign you want to use Gorduz in your main Legendary Lord army, later on you might want to attach him to a secondary army. Now he does have the entire melee skill line, the kind of rogue skill line, so he gets Deadly Onslaught and he gets Slippery. He's more of a tank in a battle. Don't use him expecting him to do a lot of damage, though he certainly can do a fair amount of it, but he just won't be the most substantial duelist that you can have in a campaign. His situation is more about survivability. He can actually take quite a bit of damage in a battle, given that he gets ward save, he gets a bunch of other benefits from his items from his skill line as well. Then he has the special skill line, if you will, that affects Hobgoblins. So at rank 5 he can unlock the Stabius, which gives you minus 20% upkeep for all Hobgoblin units and makes them more experienced. This is what I mean in the sense that Gorduz is really useful if you move him to a secondary army as opposed to just attaching him constantly to your main army, which is a bad tendency that I'm sure a lot of people will have. I certainly have it. Then you get Stickum, which gives melee attack and weapon strength for Hobgoblin units. Pretty solid. shoot him, plus 25% ammunition, or plus 50% ammunition, I apologize, plus 50% ammunition at the highest rank, and 20% missile strength for Hobgoblin units. Dodge him, which gives melee defense and a lot of missile resistance, so Hobgoblin units can directly charge a range line, and they'll survive with this kind of benefit. And then Get them, which gives speed, and Hobgoblins are pretty fast to begin with, so it makes them far better. And then he can summon a unit of Hobgoblin Cutthroats. I'm not entirely certain if this unit actually gets all these benefits. Now, for me personally, it's always a balancing act between this skill line, the Stabbiest skill line, and the Bloody Blade, because on one hand, I obviously want Gorduz to be useful in battle, but on the other hand, I do want to make use of the upkeep benefit at the very least. I'd say that of all the benefits here, the one you really, really want is the Stabbiest. Stabbiest, as well as Stickum, is very useful because it makes your Hobgoblin Sneaky gets substantially better. Buffing Hobgoblin archers in terms of ranger ability can be useful, but it's always going to be a limitation on their range strength. If you're hoping Hobgoblin archers are going to do a substantial job in a fight, be prepared to be disappointed. Sneaky gets, however, can do a fairly substantial amount of damage in a fight in melee, and even in ranged with their precursor weapon that they do have access to. So those are some of the things you should consider when you're getting Gorduz and how you're going to use them in the campaign and what you should prioritize. Like, obviously, you're going to get some points over here in the melee skill line because that's what you're going to start with. Or you could decide, you know what, I don't care about this combat ability, I just want them for the campaign buffs, just get replenishment, save up points for the Stabbiest, and just get those very substantial army abilities. Now, I don't think Gorduz is overpowered, because ultimately Chaos Dwarves, be it blunderbusses, centaurs, Kadai units, are far better. So Gorduz is really useful for your main army or only in the early game, and then later on, you will want to move him out of the main army, get better units for that main army, which is going to be dealing with the quest battles and the most difficult encounters in your campaign, and instead move him to a secondary army where he can make that secondary army far more powerful. That would be the way I would use Gorduz in a campaign. That is his usefulness. And I do like the fact that Creative Assembly has designed him in such a way that you actually want to use him, as opposed to just being a really powerful hero that you just attach to the main army and he's not really going to play a major role. Gorduz can play a major role on your campaign map in a very significant way, dependent on how you're using him. Because with all the Hobgoblin buffs, he can take a secondary army and make it far more powerful and useful as a result. And that's all there is to it. Kostin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.